The miracle of the Marne saved Paris, but it did not end the war. What it did was far worse. By September 1914, the great German advance had been stopped. The Schlieffen Plan, Germany's high-stakes gamble for a quick victory, had failed. But here's the crucial thing: neither side was defeated. And neither side was willing to retreat. Instead, the war entered a new and terrifying phase. After the retreat from the Marne, both the German and the Allied armies faced the same brutal reality. They were staring at each other across a shattered landscape, exhausted, blooded, but still utterly determined to win. So the generals did what generals often do when their grand plans collapse: they improvised. Each side tried to outmaneuver the other, to find an open flank, a weak point, somewhere, anywhere, to break through. And so began what historians would later call the race to the sea. Now, this wasn't a race toward the ocean out of some grand strategy or for symbolic reasons. It was a desperate, almost chaotic, series of moves and counter-moves stretching hundreds of miles. The French and British armies shifted north, trying to get around the German right flank. The Germans, seeing this, did the exact same thing, trying to get around the Allied left flank. They would march, clash, dig in, and then march again. Every single time one side tried to turn the other's flank, they were blocked. So they moved north again, and again, and again. What followed was not one single, decisive battle, but a brutal chain of violent clashes across the fields of northern France and Belgium. And each clash ended in the same grim way: staggering losses, no breakthrough, and more men being ordered to dig into the earth for survival. By October, this desperate race reached its final destination: the cold, gray waters of the North Sea. There was nowhere left to go. The line was unbroken. And the final, most horrific stop in this race was a quiet, medieval town in Belgium that would soon become infamous: Ypres. Here, the war reached a horrifying, grinding stalemate. The First Battle of Ypres was not about gaining territory, it was about pure survival. German forces launched wave after wave of desperate attacks, hoping to finally break through the Allied lines before the harsh European winter arrived. On the other side, British soldiers, many of them professional veterans of the small but highly trained British Expeditionary Force, stood their ground with deadly, accurate rifle fire. Their shooting was so precise, so rapid, that German troops were convinced they were facing machine guns, not individual soldiers with bolt-action rifles. But numbers told their own story. The British Expeditionary Force, the old Contemptibles, was slowly and systematically bled dry. By the end of the battle, it had lost most of its original, highly trained soldiers. An entire generation of Britain's professional army was gone, wiped out in just a few weeks. They had held the line, but at an almost unimaginable cost. For the Germans, the price was just as staggering. Young, inexperienced volunteers, many of them students straight from school, were sent forward in mass assaults against entrenched positions. They walked, sometimes singing, directly into a storm of machine gun fire. Thousands died in mere minutes. The fields around Ypres became graveyards, littered with the bodies of boys who had been in uniform for only a few weeks. This slaughter would later be remembered in Germany with a haunting name: the Massacre of the Innocents. By November 1914, both sides were exhausted beyond measure. The autumn rain began to fall relentlessly. The ground, churned up by endless shellfire, turned into a thick, inescapable quagmire of mud. And the soldiers, freezing and miserable, did the only thing they could do to stay alive: they dug. From the Swiss border all the way to the English Channel, hundreds of miles of trenches carved their way across the European landscape like a hideous scar. This was not planned. No general had envisioned a war fought like this, from ditches in the ground. But modern weapons, the machine gun, rapid-fire artillery, and the simple but deadly invention of barbed wire had made movement across open ground almost impossible. Any man who raised his head above the parapet was likely to die. The war of movement was officially over. The war of attrition had begun. The Western Front was born. Life in the trenches was a living nightmare. The mud was a constant enemy, swallowing boots, equipment, and sometimes even men who slipped off the duckboards. Rats, grown fat on the dead, scurried through the dugouts. The shelling never truly stopped, a constant, nerve-shredding drumbeat of explosions. Soldiers lived with the constant, intimate knowledge that death could come at any second from a shell from above, a mine from below, or a sniper's bullet from straight ahead. And yet, even as Europe descended into this grim, industrialized slaughter, something remarkable happened. In the cold of December 1914, along scattered parts of the Western Front, the guns fell silent. British and German soldiers cautiously climbed out of their trenches. They met in the shattered wasteland of no man's land. They sang carols. They exchanged small gifts, cigarettes, chocolate, buttons from their uniforms. They even played games of football. For a brief, magical moment, their shared humanity broke through the horror of war. It was a moment that would never happen again. High command on both sides made sure of it, because the war was only getting started. While the Western Front froze in mud and blood, the global conflict was spreading. New, vast fronts were opening in the east, where massive armies clashed across Poland and Galicia. Great empires, like the Ottoman and the Austro-Hungarian, were beginning to crack under the strain, and the decisions made in these chaotic early months of the war would set the stage for the next 4 years of unprecedented slaughter. And that is where our story continues. Thanks for watching. If you want to understand how this conflict truly unfolded and how it completely reshaped the modern world we live in today, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for the next episode. We'll see you then.